people said, we ought to pass a bill to label GMOs. And I said, we can go one step better. Why don't we in Mendocino County say you can't grow them here? And so then GMO-free Mendocino was born. They said, well, it was your idea. Go take it somewhere.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson, and my guest today has been working locally for a healthier and better connected community in Mendocino County, California. Els Cooperrider, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for asking.
You've been doing a lot, not only with efforts to make, how do I say this? You have a family-owned business,
Yes.
the Ukiah, tell us.
Ukiah Brewing Company and Restaurant. It's the first certified organic brew pub in the United States.
Yes, and I would add a lot of the produce you use in your restaurant is local.
We try and buy local whenever we can.
So you're a model actually of developing and building that local economy way ahead of a lot of communities.
Yes, well, we recognize the need to support our local businesses and farmers.
And I would imagine it's getting a wonderful response. I would hope so.
It is. Someone just recognized the other day that the beef they were eating was from a local Covelo organic beef farm or cattle ranch.
That's way ahead of many of ours. I would say that our community is starting to get involved with promoting our local farmers, but having it in the restaurants is a way to get a visibility to
That's right.
that most don't. But that's not all you've been doing here.
No.
Tell us about your efforts about keeping genetically modified organisms from being part of Mendocino County.
I am a trained scientist, and I did work in medical research for 24 years. And I taught at the School of Biomedical Sciences and Veterinary Medicine for the last 5 of those. And a lot of the research was starting to go into what they call recombinant DNA, which we now call genetic engineering. And I was asked if I would move into that field, and I didn't want to. Because I really felt that we were playing God with life. And even though that's not a religious conviction necessarily of mine, I felt that we shouldn't be playing with the very essence of life without knowing what the consequences could possibly be.
And we, of course, they have continued to do that.
Oh, yes. Within 10 years, the first genetically engineered food went on the market. That was the Flavor Saver tomato.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, now, of course, there's great concern about those organisms getting spread in the wild and modifying our hardy stock and so on. Let me back. When you got concerned about that, what did you do here in your locale about that?
Well, here in our small county, I helped co-found with 3 others, including Dave Smith, the Mendocino Organic Network. And among other things, we started a local organic certification service that keeps the government and politics out of organics. And so that's been ongoing now for about 5 years.
So tell us what that does, what your service does.
What our service does, it inspects businesses or farms that want to be certified. It's just a 1 or 2 page application, and it's peer certified. So we ask farmers in the community who've been certified organic in the past, so they know the ropes, to go and inspect those farms.
So you're actually probably circumventing the very expensive, there are other certification processes.
The reason we did it is because, first of all, we did it for several reasons. Organic certification through the USDA now is, number 1, very expensive. Number 2, very time consuming. And number 3, the records are out of sight. For our brewery restaurant, I filled out 160 pages
No.
in order to certify our restaurant. And so we realized that wasn't necessary.
And that's going to, I mean, so many small
Yeah.
farms and growers are not going to
Right.
be able to
Well,
go through that.
and not only that, they're going for profit, these certification agencies. Not, of course, the USDA, but the USDA now oversees the whole National Organic Program. It used to be that the certifiers, organic certifiers, were nonprofit.
That's how, that's my, that,
Yes.
I'm still in that mindset.
Right. But since organics has been growing at double digits for the last so many years, everybody wants to get into the game. And so we recognized the need when farmers would come and tell us, you know, I'd like to be certified organic, but I can't afford it. And so we started what's called Mendocino Renegade. So if you are a Mendocino Renegade, not only do people see your label and know that you're certified organic or beyond organic, as we call it, but it's also local because we only certify farms and businesses in Mendocino County.
That is I get to bring, I want to bring that back to our community, because certifying one another, you also are building those relationships.
That's
but it's
right.
organic and local is,
Yes.
I mean, that's a double hit. That's
right.
fabulous.
That's right. Yeah.
Sounds like, so with Mendocino Organics, you've done the certification. What
Yes.
else have you done?
Well, we were talking about genetic engineering and during one of our steering committee meetings, and people said, you know, we ought to pass a bill to label GMOs. Can I say GMOs now?
Sure.
Yeah. And I said, you know, we can go one step better. Why don't we in Mendocino County say you can't grow them here? And so then GMO-free Mendocino was born. They said, well, it was your idea. Go
You
take
have
it
to do
somewhere.
it.
And 2 years later, 57% of the voters in Mendocino County enacted the first GMO ban in the United States. So Mendocino County became the first GMO-free zone when it comes to crops and animals, not things that
Not
you buy
food
in the
that produces
store.
the,
No,
right,
we couldn't do
but
that.
to your own production.
But your own production, so that we could keep this county pure, free of contamination, and help our economy, because eventually, I predict, and so do many others, that GMOs will come back to bite us.
In what ways?
In what ways? Well, I just heard a report from India where several trials were going on for genetically engineered corn. They harvested the corn and then they took 20,000 sheep and goats and turned them into the fields. And I don't know how many they actually turned in, but 20,000 of them died. Yes. Wow. And this, of course, you never read on the front page of any paper.
No. So
Yeah.
what we're really saying is the GMOs are not really promoting health and
Oh, no.
longevity
Oh,
and
no,
so on.
no.
They're just making
GMOs
money
are
for the...
It's making money for private enterprise. And of course, Monsanto now owns the patents on 91% of all genetically engineered organisms. And as a matter of fact, Monsanto, when we put the Citizens Initiative ballot measure out before the voters in this county, the lobbyist group of Monsanto, DuPont, Dow Chemical, Syngenta, you name them, sued us. And they sued me personally and Janie Shepard, as well as Professor Epstein, who helped me co-write the ordinance, and the registrar of voters in Mendocino County, to remove the ballot arguments that we had made. And so we went to court, and we won.
Yes.
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 So that was.
I mean, what
that
I
was
hear is
amazing.
private control,
Right.
attempting to just
We
sort of
want
take
local
over
control.
everything.
Yeah, we want local control.
Absolutely.
I think the people in the community should be able to determine their own futures
Yes.
and decide what is good for them to grow and what isn't. And so this is not only bucking Monsanto, this is also bucking the World Trade Organization and NAFTA and those other agreements
Yes.
that I believe destroy communities, destroy local farmers, and we need to go in the exact opposite direction.
Well, we see those agreements having resulted in destroying local manufacturing,
Right.
destroying local production.
That's
I mean,
right.
we are now competing with, cheaply grown and cheap fuel, bringing
Yes.
us goods from
Yeah.
all over the world, which is not going to continue as the prices of oil go up. I mean, that's going to work in
Exactly.
our favor.
Of course, yes.
But are we going to be
Eventually.
prepared
Yeah.
for that? You have a radio show, or have had.
I
radio
started a
shows?
radio show in 2004. That was the same year that the GMO ordinance was passed. And I called it The Party's Over, Going Local. The Party's Over is a book written by Richard Heinberg,
Yes.
who is from Santa Rosa, just below
Nearby,
our county. And of course, I read the book and I thought it was brilliant that he brought it to the fore, because I hadn't really been paying attention to that part of our economy and energy.
And
so,
seeing the parties, the cheap oil, cheap gas
Yes,
party is over,
Right.
and
we need to go local. We
because
need to localize.
there's nothing to replace it.
That's
And of
right.
course, climate change would say
Right.
don't keep going with the fossil
No,
fuels
of course.
anyway.
There's all kinds of reasons.
So
Well, we have 5.5 billion years of sunshine left, but only 30 or 40 years of oil, or cheap oil, or available oil.
yeah.
And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what we should be doing as far as energy goes. And, of course, not having cheap oil, which our whole global economy is based on that.
Exactly.
There are no, for instance, no shoe factories in the United States anymore. You can't buy a locally made shoe unless it's a Birkenstock, I think.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
they're not here anymore, I'm not sure. So we need to localize our economy. We need to figure out what we need to grow, what we need to manufacture, and how to help each other go into the future.
So what kinds of you've been talking and thinking about this for a while here.
I have.
I mean, you've got to have
Oh, yes.
ideas percolating
I've got
in
ideas,
here.
but I look at the basics in Mendocino County, where I've been for a long time. My folks came here in the late 50s, and this is where I met my husband 43 years ago. So this is my home. And what I look at when I see Mendocino County, what I see is an abundance. Not a lack of, but an abundance.
Okay.
We have good, clean water, and if we conserve it, we'll have plenty into the future. For agriculture, for fish, wild fish in the streams. We have other resources such as magnificent forests, which catch water and hold water and keep
Sequester
that
carbon and
absolutely, and they
all
do that. And then we have almost 500,000 acres of good rangeland where you couldn't farm, but you could have grazing animals.
Okay.
And then we have not too much left though of prime agricultural land, because we're paving it over with big box stores, poor planned housing developments. And sprawl, urban sprawl, strip malls, you name it. So, but looking through the lens of abundance, I see that with only 90,000 people in the county, and of course it'll grow, presumably, but we have enough here to plan a really good future so that our children and grandchildren will also be able to benefit and have a good life like we did. We had the party.
Yes.
Right?
We
had
we're
the
living
party.
at the peak moment
Yes.
is why I've
That's
chosen
right.
this, because we've gotten the return on
Right,
wonderful abundance and prosperity
right,
since the middle of the century.
yeah.
That's a hopeful message.
Yes.
Kind of how do you envision getting, what will it take to get from here to there? Because you're talking about a movement that's counter to
It's counter to the
where
global
things are
movement.
going.
You're
of
right.
course.
It's counter to the global movement. However, what it takes is education. What it takes is citizen involvement. Not me standing up here and preaching to them that this is the way to go, but to give them the facts. Look at where we're going. Even people, the first thing that people will say if they hear that we may be running out of oil, or affordable oil, I should say, we're never going to run out of oil.
Right.
Is, well, we can make ethanol, or we can have nuclear power, and then when you tell them that we may want to save whatever oil we have left to grow our food, or to process our food, or that we need that land, that good prime ag land, to grow food rather than ethanol to keep our cars on the road, then they start thinking. And so, they'll bring up nuclear power. Oh, we can do that. Well, Maybe, but we should have started about 20 years ago. It takes 10 to 20 years to get a nuclear power plant online. We don't know what to do with the waste. We've never figured that out. And uranium is also limited.
It's not a renewable resource.
It's not a renewable resource. We already know that there's not that many deposits of uranium left. And that I don't hear talked about either.
Yes,
So-
that limit of that resource.
Right.
And of course the fact that it really truly isn't cost effective.
It is not cost
There's a lot of
effective.
petroleum used
Right.
to
Of
produce
course.
and transport and so on. And of course it only gives you electricity, which doesn't
Right.
move our cars.
No, it doesn't unless you were able to plug them in somewhere.
Right, which we're still
So
getting.
when I think about all those facets of reality that we now face, the smartest thing for us to do is, while we still have money and affordable oil, and I still think, I was born and raised in Europe, so the oil prices there are very different from here, or gas prices.
Yes.
What we should be doing is to take those resources we still have and convert our infrastructure to renewable sources of energy. And we should have started yesterday.
We should have started 2 decades, 3 decades ago
that's right.
when we saw the oil embargo in '73.
Right. In this county, I heard a new hospital is being built, no solar panels, no alternative energy whatsoever.
Really?
A new school is being built in Mendocino on the coast, and it was faced completely the wrong way, even if they wanted to put solar panels on there. But we need to get government involved, and government is the slowest, most sluggish part to move. It's kind of like taking a toothpick and trying to move a pile of Jell-O. It's very, very difficult.
But they're the last to move. I mean, the need
Yeah, they're the last to
because
move.
the bureaucratic processes are unwieldy.
They're unwieldy because that's the status quo, and they're protecting the status quo. And incumbents want to protect the status quo because that's what worked for them in the past.
And that's why they're there.
That's why they're there. So we need to think a new way. And, getting citizens involved is probably the most difficult part. However, when we get them involved, we can move mountains. I know that. And I realize a lot of citizens don't vote anymore because they feel disenfranchised.
Sure.
They don't see what government's doing for them or that it even listens. And so I feel compassionate towards those people. Or, a lot of those people can't even make the next rent check. Or,
They don't have time to even be thinking about things that their local government's doing. They're just trying to survive.
Right. And so I'm not one to blame people for not participating. But we need to somehow get them involved. But there has to be something immediate in it for them.
Yes.
And so that's where all these localization groups are working together to find that and to get people involved. And I think they're doing a very good job.
What do you envision that county and city governments can and should be doing to address the fact that the party's over, to make
first
your
of all,
locale stronger?
First, they need to listen to the hundreds of citizens who are working on these projects and recognize that this is a solid movement that is based on real facts.
And not
what's
only in
gonna
your own
happen.
community. I want to add,
Everywhere.
what I've learned is that city and state and county governments want to know that they're not the first on the block to
Right.
go innovate doing
Right,
this. And
right.
that cities like San Francisco have just passed their peak oil resolution saying
Good.
this is a real
Yes.
problem, and
Yes.
we do need to address the need for renewable energy
Right.
and our county services. I want to tell you that there's just been a summit intended for local officials in the North Bay counties that got together to look at energy vulnerability. Richard Heinberg spoke,
Yes.
Julian Darley,
Yes.
so that we can just start to see what some locales are beginning to do
Right.
to assess what you'll do when the prices go up, what in terms of offering the core services, how will
Yes.
our sheriff's department, our fire department,
Yes.
sewage treatment, water
Oh,
treatment.
yes. Oh, yes.
So I imagine those are things that are in your thoughts.
They're all in my thoughts. I'm not the expert on all of these different
can't
in these different areas, but we do have experts. We have people in this county, for instance, who are very good on renewable energy. We have people in this county who are very good in alternative medicine. We have people in this county who know how to grow food without using pesticides, without using chemical fertilizers. And so we have a lot of expertise here, and we need to use that. expertise, and actually we are, or I shouldn't say we are, these people are coming forward and saying, you know, I know a little bit about this. Let's explore this particular area, such as in renewable energy sources, how we can do that. Dr. Kristen Bradford, for instance, has been on my show, on The Party's Over, talking about medicine in the future, you know. And so there's a lot we can do. And I think what is amazing to me, now I actually straddle two different worlds in a certain way, because I was born at the end of World War II in Holland. And when I grew up, there were only 2 cars in our village of 4,000 people, a coastal village. And that was the doctor and the minister, that each had a black Mercedes. But the rest of the people either rode bicycles, and all the merchants used horses and buggies. I had never seen a refrigerator until I came to the United States.
Wow.
Nobody died of food poisoning that I knew of. You know, there's so many ways to live. It doesn't have to be the way it is right now. But it seems to be a little bit threatening to people if they have to change their ways.
Our habits get strong.
Yes,
And
yes.
we've also gotten very accustomed to the conveniences.
Right.
Particularly around transportation.
Right.
You know, pop in your car at any time and do what you want to do at any time.
Of course.
As opposed to public transportation.
Right. And I've become that way myself, unfortunately. But luckily I did learn how to sew. My mother and the teachers, you know, in school, we learned how to knit socks. We learned how to sew all our own clothes. When we were poor students in school, my husband and I in graduate school, I could go to the Salvation Army, buy good old wool coats, and remake them into coats for my children. You know, those kinds of things, those aren't bad things. Those are good things.
Those are, what you're talking about is a kind of resourcefulness and
Right.
self-reliance, which
That's right.
which is in us, which we may have
We all
to
have it.
relearn those skills.
I think it's a reawakening for us. And I think everyone I talk to, because I get passionate about this, and I can see them, I can see their wheels turning. Yeah, I could learn how to do this. Yeah, I think we can do this. It doesn't mean that our life is not going to be as good at all. I think some of these modern conveniences, I remember washing clothes in a tub when my husband was getting his master's in Montana. And I had to go pump the water outside, bring it on the wood stove and heat it up and wash. And you used one washing. First you did your sheets and your towels, and then you ended up with your diapers. Of course, that's what everybody used to do. You don't get new water for each one. And it all works. You know, you do your dirtiest ones last. And so there's so much we can do. There's so much water we can conserve. We have so much in us that can be reawakened that I'm really, really hopeful for the future. I know we can do it. And I hope I live long enough to see it all happening. So
That's the positive vision, because people are going to move forward when you've got a sense of course we can do this, as opposed to lack, scarcity.
Oh yeah.
I can't live
no,
as
we can't talk
well.
about that.
I mean, that's not what to dwell on. It
No.
will be change.
Yep.
That's why we call
That's
this a
right.
changing energy
Positive
future.
change.
I mean, we may get to know each other better because we're quilting together, or gardening
That's
together,
right.
or farming
That's
together,
right.
and
Yeah, one of my friends taught me how to weave baskets. And it is the most wonderful thing to do on a winter night when it's raining, sitting by your wood stove, weaving baskets. And it's something that my father actually used to do, but he didn't teach me. I had to learn it later. These little things, we can do so much ourselves. And I think it makes us actually feel better. I think it gives us a sense of accomplishment.
well, we've been told for so long, or at least in our generation, since the mid-century, is who you are as the consumer. I mean, the corporate world has made sure to say, that's all you are.
Yeah.
And we need you to consume. I mean, that
Right.
after 9/11, what
Right.
Bush says is go out and go shopping was like,
I'll never forget that.
such a diminished view of what we're about.
Well, he was worried about
the economy tanking, and of course that's a reasonable thing. And
Right.
And actually, that's a real important issue. We've got about 3 minutes left here, and we could probably talk for hours.
We probably could.
Your economy is going to be a critical linchpin here.
Yes.
Local economy.
Yes.
If we look at reduced energy, since our complex society is built on energy, and energy is what keeps that economy going and going and going. Reduced energy, less economy, fewer property taxes, even more constraints for your local governments.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had to think about that in your scenario.
Oh, yes. I think about it. Now, we're very lucky in Mendocino County. We have an ideal climate. And we are very resource rich. Now, if I were living in Alaska, it would be different.
Yes.
But we're living in Mendocino County.
Yes.
Even if people couldn't get heat in the winter, they would be fine. So first we have to look at the positives.
Yes.
You know, what
Yes.
do we?
Well,
what is the
we build
last
on
thing
that.
we need to worry about? Is staying warm.
Right.
Staying cool. We can learn how to insulate our homes.
Mm-hmm.
We can learn how to plant trees that are deciduous on the south sides of homes,
Right.
so that they cool your home in the summertime. We can do all of that. This is free. This doesn't cost anything. Well, insulating your home will cost you something.
Small
but you'll
amount,
reap
but it's
the
an
amount.
incredible
Yeah.
investment back. Yes.
And as far as the rest of the energy question, I'm not quite sure exactly what you were asking.
Well, I'm just saying that when it comes to, I'm just thinking about your government level.
Okay, government
right? You have
level, yeah.
services that
Right.
you've got to make sure that you're
Right.
protecting people with fire and
Right,
police
right,
and
right.
their fresh water, because I imagine
Right,
you're on a
right.
water treatment plant in your cities.
Yes, in some of the cities they are. Where I live, of course, we're
So
not.
you're on a
Yeah,
well or
yeah.
whatever, and
Well,
you're blessed that way.
we have a year-round spring that's gravity fed, flows off the mountain into our house.
So you have concerns of both the rural and in
Yes,
that sense
we have concerns
more
about both.
independent folk,
Right.
and thus your towns as
Right.
well with sewage
Right.
treatment and so on.
Now, I will be the first to tell you I don't have everything worked out.
Oh, you don't? Els, I'm sorry, we have to stop the whole conversation here. I was looking for the miracle answer.
But I do think when people become involved and they realize that things are going to change, and possibly for the better, you know, keeping families working together better.
yeah.
When I grew up as a child, I had chores all the time. I was a very important part, I thought, of my family.
You were needed, and
I
I
was
think
needed.
that's an important message.
And that's going to
for
change
young
in the
people.
future.
We're going to need
Yes,
all of
we're
them.
going to need all hands on deck. All hands on deck. We're all going to work together. I think there will be less crime.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there will be less poverty, real poverty that we have now, because we're going to have to share. We're going to have to realize it's not every man for himself. We're going to live as a community again. We may even end up living as clans again. I think Daniel Quinn said we need to go back and look at the tribal model, because that's the only human organization that has lasted throughout the ages.
That's beautiful. Back to clans, back to our tribes, back to a collective where we know each other and can work together. Thank you. This is Janaea Donaldson, and you're watching Peak Moment, community responses to a changing energy future. Join us for the next episode.